Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Local Growth Academy, where we talk everything local businesses, and just how to scale and manage and become better leaders and better thought people and just overall better humans. I'm really excited to chat with my guest today, Scott Fitch. He's the founder of Fitch Painting and something kind of new that we'll kind of talk about a little bit: Pro Painter Sales Crew, like a sales coaching thing specifically for painters. So, Scott, welcome in.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. That's really awesome to talk to you.
Yeah, man. I've always enjoyed all of our conversations, man. We've known each other for a couple years now. We've had a bunch of online chats, quite a few Zoom and voice chats before too. And I always get a lot out of these conversations. So, man, tell us I'd like to kind of ask you a few questions here, but start by kind of giving me like an overview. Like I know you've had Fitch painting for a while, right? I forget exactly how long, but you've been in painting for like 20, 30 years or something, right? Yeah. And then, Fitch Painting's been there for a while. You did some work before that with other people. Fitch Painting is doing really well. It's like close to $1 million in revenue. Um, and you kind of branched out last year and started doing some like sales coaching stuff because I know you're really good at sales. Talk me through like what kind of brought you to want to take like your personal sales skills and like, kind of branch out and like help others.
Well, it was something that I really started wanting to do it when I was in sales full time. So I was working with another company. I was with them for 7 years and I did 3 to 5 quotes every single day, managed a team of 20 painters, and so it was a massive job. It was 12 hours a day but I was a recent empty nester and it was super fun. So I really enjoyed that. And while I was doing that, it was then that I started to talk to a lot of my painter friends and realized that a lot of the stuff at that time that I was doing was really not common, but it was pretty successful because I would make a mistake and then I would try to shift. And because I had so many quotes to do, I had lots of opportunities to fail and try again and test and try again. So there was a whole lot of things that are more commonplace now in the painting sales arena that weren't as common then. And I tried doing you could find some old Instagram videos of me kind of talking to painters about their sales process. And when I did that, my boss didn't like it.
They didn't want
He
you
didn't
giving away the secrets, did they?
No, he didn't really want, he didn't like me, doing that, and all of that, but it was funny because even then, other people would see that, and actually people would call me and we would get jobs just because people saw me sharing about a sales process that was super effective, but it was not designed to persuade anybody particularly, or it didn't include some of the same, sales tactics that other people were employing to try and do a one-call close no matter what. Uh, you know, it just and all of my content too, it's very something that that customers and prospective buyers of painting, work can they can understand that it's actually valuable for this process is valuable for them too. So that was really what started me thinking about it, and, it's just been in the last few, years that I've decided to kinda downsize the painting business, to a few crews, so that I can still do sales calls and I can still have those experiences to share and be in the trenches, and, but then, offer some of these systems to, painting business owners and their salespeople.
Gotcha. So, I mean, I know I've got some of my favorites, and so we share some similar viewpoints on this. Like when I was getting out of high school and stuff, I was like, getting into sales myself and did painting sales and stuff as well, and then did some insurance sales and a couple other things, and it didn't stay very long. And I think it was because of the same thing. Like the sales methods that I was learning were super high pressure, and I appreciate learning them, because one, I learned what I don't want to do, and two, there's like the 1% of time you may want to let pull on that lever just a tiny bit, not in a manipulative way, but just it's like having the skill and not needing it is better than needing the skill and not having it, if that makes sense. But I
Yeah.
did but I didn't like those processes, man. I mean, in
Right.
some areas like life insurance, door to door is like it's some door to door. There's some people that do door to door ethically, like Justin Georgopoulos does it really, really ethically. But there's a lot of
Killer.
high pressure door to door that's like really, really cutthroat.
Hey.
Car sales is still predominantly like this, and not all of them, but still predominantly. And so I learned all that stuff, and I was like, yeah, I don't like sales. And also in these generations, and probably still so in like TV and movies and pop culture, it's like sales is always like presented as something that's almost sleazy, you know. And so I got out of it for years, and I was like, I'm never going back to sales again. And then I was sort of forced into sales. It's a long story. I won't bore people with on this podcast, but I was kind of forced back into it for a company I was building. Like there was just no one else that could do it. So I like had to temporarily take it, and I had to kind of build the system and then hire and train people to do it. And then I was kind of like got back into it, and I was like, well, I just don't want to do it this way. So I started trying other things, kind of like you, and I found like a few really good influences for me, like that kind of helped build what my current repertoire is now in my sales skills is, you know, it's a helping, not selling type mentality, right?
Sure.
Some people call it coaching type selling or consultative type selling. Like my viewpoint now is like I want to help people, guide them to where it's at,
Right.
where is best for them, regardless of
Yep.
what like happens to me. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at, right? It's like it's sometimes it's a one meeting thing and you close it, and sometimes it's not. And whether it takes 5 minutes or 5 days or 5 weeks or 5 years, it's like you're just there and you're ready and helping. So my question to you is, because I know that like from you describing it, what you do and how I operate, there's a ton of similarity, right? Um, and I bet if we were to really get in the weeds, it'd be even more similar than we probably think right now. But my question to you is, who are some of the sales or communications books or people or speakers or coaches or whatever along your journey that have been meaningful to you and have helped you like learn from, um,
Mhm.
if any?
Okay. So yeah, I think um influences wise, I really like Bill Berg. I really like his material. I think I just think it's fantastic. Uh, Old school sales, Jeffrey Gitmer is a name that I don't know if you know who that is or not, but Jeffrey,
I knew who it is, but I haven't read any books.
yeah, all his books are marked by this thing where he'll say, the 7.5 keys to this or the
Yeah,
9.3 keys to that.
yeah.
So that was hugely valuable to me. And certainly I've definitely gleaned a lot from Grant Cardone. And I've consumed a lot of his content. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that he's necessarily a mentor of mine, uh, except in a few areas, but not in um, not in that sort of, you know, getting somebody to make a decision right now for my sake.
Hmm.
Now, sometimes folks, it's a huge help to them, and if you frame it that is a huge help to them to make a decision in the call, or in one meeting, then it truly is. It truly can be. But there's definitely a tone and a style that isn't me, in the Grant Cardone world, although I definitely admire him and admire a lot of a lot of the people that work with him.
Yeah, I agree. I think that in general, he's too pushy for my style and in
Right.
the companies that I own and involved in. It's definitely
Yeah.
not my style of doing it.
Yeah.
I think he's in a real estate space. I think in that space it makes a little bit more sense. It's very a little bit niche to niche, and you know um, there's different ways. Like, I mean, business to business is different than business to consumer, right? Selling a car is different than selling a
Yeah,
coaching
it's
product.
interesting. If you ever got it, if you were ever to get if you ever got on their list, and of course I was a member of Cardone
I
University,
am.
and
Yeah.
so you know, whenever when they had conferences and all of that stuff, I would get calls from guys, and sometimes I would
Mhm.
book a call with them, and they show up with the complete suit on, and they've
Mhm.
got, there's obviously this stand-up place that they do their calls in that has a
Mhm.
background behind them, and
Yep.
it's just it's and this is all just to get me to go to a conference and spend a
Yeah.
thousand
Like
bucks
the like
to
the like the
to
10x. Yeah.
10x conference, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And just so well trained, and go from one, and just won't let you go, and just and I get it. I think it's great. Um but and I think there's confidence that I gain from that. There are things that I definitely learn from that. Uh However, when it comes to home services, especially painting, where you're in somebody's home in a very intimate level, you're crawling around every square inch of their house. If
Yeah,
they're reti
I think it's a different playbook at that point.
if they're retired, they're gonna be home. We just did a raw job recently where we were doing all of the main floor areas, and the folks were home all day. So
Yeah.
if the painters even made a sound like, "Oh," the people
They'd
would
hear.
react and be like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
You know? A a and so the problem is that when you get somebody to a decision who necessarily didn't want to go there, um,
Mhm.
you don't create an environment where you're welcome. Or sometimes what happens is, if a painting salesperson goes out and sells a job with one spouse, and they sell the job and they show up to do the work, many times that spouse is not there. It's the other spouse that you've never met before, and they may or may not even agree with you being there. So if you do, if you do, couple thousand projects, you run into these situations where you never want that happening, where somebody doesn't want you in the house, because I've done that, and I've closed uh, a spouse. And when we got to the job, that spouse was not there. It was the other spouse who didn't agree with us even being there. And to the painters, the spouse was, saying things like, "Oh, I can't believe you guys are doing that. Do you have to, can you not be done by 3 o'clock today? Like, my kids are coming home. And
Yeah.
if you could just come at 10 tomorrow, that would be great." Like,
Yeah.
it's great to sell a $20,000 job, but you really want to make sure that you're welcome. And in my opinion, that you can't twist somebody's arm. That's how jobs get canceled. That's how people want deposits back. You really want them to be super happy that you're coming.
So
So
I
that's
heard
been
this.
my experience.
I had this isn't for me, it's for my dad. My dad was in sales like his whole life, except for a few years in the military. So he started selling as a teenager, and he's since passed away. But he told me when he was a kid, he got to start selling Hoover vacuums door to door. Right, this is like it's
Wow.
like in the '60s, man. You know what I mean? So this is a
Yeah.
long time ago, and so he's like in early to mid '60s, going door to door selling vacuum cleaners as a young teenager. And he told me that like the biggest thing with his job was that he would go out and sell during the day. Well, that's the generation where 99% of the time there was a woman at home
Mhm.
with or without kids, and the man wasn't there. That was just that generation, right? Some women worked. It wasn't like it was, but not common, right? Not common. So he would go and door knock, and he would sell all these vacuums. He said he had anywhere between 50 to upwards of 90% at times where the husband would come home and like cancel the check.
Yes.
So that the husband would come home and see the
Yeah.
vacuum, this giant amount of money, and be like, no, what are you thinking? And you know what I mean? Um,
Totally.
I mean, different era, but it was the same kind of thing. So high pressure sales, door to door, get some lady to buy this vacuum cleaner without both spouses there. The other spouse
Uh-huh.
gets home, nope, we're done, and it would get canceled. And so he's like, I sold like almost 100% of these vacuums. Like my close rate was like 80, 90%, but the
Yep.
refund rate was through the roof. And
Yeah.
so he might actually only keep like 1 in 10, right? Or maybe 2 in 10 if he was lucky. And
Wow.
so the actual, after you accounted for the refund rate, the close rate without refunds was only like 10 to 20%. And so it's interesting you mentioned that. It's like same kind of thing, you know. I'm not sure if you've ever run into refunds with that happening, but um, it definitely could at least make for an
Well,
uncomfortable situation.
definitely canceled deposits,
Yeah.
and a lot of times I could like canceled jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and again, that's been part of my learning experience. And I can't separate that learning experience from what I do or the way that I do it. And my only guess is that I had enough sampling, probably done over 10,000 quotes, you know? And so I've had enough sampling to know when I've blown it on that front. And uh, I've done a lot of different kinds of attempts to close on site. And there's been time if I can't. What I've learned now is that if I can't position it that it really is valuable for somebody, um, then um, then it's probably better to let the follow up, uh, take its course. And I was probably closing when I was at that other company. I was probably closing in the 40% zone, being the most expensive company in the city by far. And but in I don't know what year it was, but maybe 2017, I bought myself active campaign so that I could because I
Did they not
so,
have a CRM?
so that I could follow up. No, company didn't have a CRM. So I bought myself active campaign
Just so you
so
could keep
that
track of your own leads.
just so that I could do drip campaigns, just so that I could follow up with people
Mm-hmm.
by email. I could put them into my follow-up system email wise. I have a manual follow-up system that
Mm-hmm.
if somebody doesn't have a CRM and they don't have any of that and they want to go old school, no problem. And it's a simple way to use Google Calendar. You schedule yourself, you call, email, text, and you just keep doing that up to
I mean,
17 to 21 times, you know? But
the problem with that, my only problem with that is like most people can't execute on it. It's not that the plan is wrong; it's accountability is going to fall off almost every time, like 99% of the time. And unless it is a dedicated salesperson, that's all they're doing. Because you take a business owner that's doing sales, they get a production problem, they go solve it. They get a worker problem, they go step in. They get a
totally.
product problem, they got to go to Sherwin Williams, like whatever, right? Legal problem, whatever, banking
Yep.
problem. Like they're going to get pulled 100 different directions, right? And so my only problem with that is like it's great in theory, but I've never seen anyone execute on it consistently unless it is a person that is their only job, and that's never going to be the owner. It's going to be someone that they
Yeah. And
hire.
it's not, yeah. I mean, now, knowing what we know now today, it's
Hmm.
actually not great in theory.
Hmm.
It's, it's not, but it is a way if somebody doesn't have the money for a CR, like there is a way to do it. And I not only did sales, but I was also managing the projects. So, uh, you know, was a massive job. But at the core of that job was a commission driven sales process. And so, I would just schedule myself a call or an email or a text, on a regular basis. And, I think my record was 21 follow-ups, you know, and and the person was like, "Oh yeah, we really want to do that. We've just been busy, all that stuff." And
Yeah,
so
I just
when I found out that
you
active
for it, man, because
campaign could,
people are not always in the same spot as you at that moment.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they're not. And again, the moment that if you do have to walk out the door, the moment that anything can happen, life can take over. And as much as, so when I found out that there was a system that you could purchase that would do all of that for you, as effective as you pretty much, maybe without the follow up actual phone call or including the follow up phone call, but it would call or it would text and then it would email.
Hmm.
Um, so once I found out there was that increased my closing ratio, got it over 50%.
Hmm.
and got, added about 12% success rate. Um, so that's,
Yeah, I mean,
that's why I really lean
I've
heavily
never
on
met a
that.
single salesperson that with a CRM closed less than without one. Like it always goes up, always.
Well,
Like,
always, because and the other thing too is that people don't make decisions a lot of times with painting anyway. They don't make decisions during business hours. They make decisions after dinner when they're sitting talking with their spouse, when they're thinking about it. They have had a glass of wine, all that stuff. So, um, to have something that's following up in the background is absolutely critical for staying in people's hearts and minds. And if you write some decent emails, and they get opened, 60, 70% of the time, then, you know, even down the road when all of a sudden it's like, "Oh my gosh, we do need to sell this house," or, "Oh my gosh, we wanna make these plans, but we need to get the painting done." There's this convergence of, like, real strong need that is different from the want that they had before. That can be the time when this constant follow-up that's happening for you, it can really be super value. So, there are so many CRMs available that do this now for a very reasonable price and are simple to program, uh,
hmm
or like Drip Jobs, they have
hmm
stellar customer service, for example, you
hmm
know, that it's just really a no-brainer. Even if all you'd had it for was follow-up, it would pay for itself.
I mean, I think it goes beyond that though. Like the whole like Kanban view thing where you got like columns for the phases like that. That for me is my favorite part of a CRM. I mean, follow up is right behind it, but like I'm and I don't think I'm alone in this, but I have a hard time processing information unless it's visually organized. I don't mean pretty. I don't mean pretty. I just mean grouped. You know. Um, I mean, if anyone's ever tried to open up like a novel, right? They have those, bookmarks. I'm sure everyone's done this at some point. You get a real big book where the print is like fine. You have to use the bookmark so that when you go to the end of one sentence, you go back to the next line and not 5 lines down, right? Visually, like there's so much text, it's a little area. You're scanning going like this, and then you're trying to typewrite or go to the next line, but sometimes you'll go above it or beyond it or the same line. You're like, shit, where am I at? And so like I would just use bookmarks to just keep myself and go one line down, read one line down. And like that can happen like if you're trying to like how does that translate to like a bunch of leads in a notebook or something? You know what I mean? I remember my family painting business that I, grew up in a family painting business and my mom ran the 99% of the sales meetings and she just had like a school spiral bound notebook, and I never could understand it. Her close rate sucked too, by the way. She like was not selling at the highest price, and she was not closing very well. Um, at the time, I didn't understand that, but like looking back on it, it was very bad. But part of it was like it was just like all handwritten in a notebook. It's like which page should I go to? Who do I call back? Like you know what I mean? And so like if you did nothing else but like you had like color coded notepads like red is call on Fridays and green is call, that would be even better than like that, right? And then you take it and put in a CRM and like this follow up and this organization. It's like I'm flabbergasted sometimes at people that cross my plate that have like half a million dollars in business and they're still on paper. And I'm like, yeah, how much would you close if it was on a CRM though? You know what I mean?
Totally.
It's going to be so much more.
That was one of the videos that at that time my boss hated the most, only because I had gotten an affiliate link for Active Campaign. I put it
I
on
was
my
I
Insta
was a
I
reseller for them a long time ago. Yeah.
right? I put it on my Instagram page,
hmm
and, I had a video just like that, right? It's like, I don't have to take a bunch of notes. I just slide them from one category to the next, and
And
boom, they get an email. I slide them from here. Will we book an appointment? Guess what? I slide them here and it sends them this. I slide them here.
yep.
And I did several videos like that. And I agree with you, that system of being able to simply change the category that a prospect is in or a customer is in and have a whole bunch of correspondence initiated with them is one of the genius things of our time, in my opinion.
Yeah,
It's the early days of AI. That's what it
yeah,
felt like. It felt like
well,
I
it felt
I
like it,
actually have a
and
computer
there
working
was a
for me
few
doing
people that
something
used
valuable.
that too. It's artificial intelligence. No, it wasn't. It was
I
just
know.
it was programmatic if then
Yeah.
statements, but
Yeah.
still, to somebody that wasn't in the know, it could feel like it.
Yeah.
You know,
It
I
just
mean,
felt
and
like genius to me.
I've been using CRM so long that that vertical view wasn't a thing. So when I first started using CRMs, man, they were just digital Rolodexes. That's all they were,
Mhm.
right? You'd have it looked more like a Excel file, but it was on an app, right? And you'd be like,
Correct.
here's Jason Smith, here's the phone number, the email. Yeah, I mean, you could click the email, it would open up your email program, whatever. And you click in the record, you'd have like some note fields and some sales notes and stuff, like some custom fields that you had to like help organize it. But it was just a list of names. There were no views, there was no like value. There was no like prediction. There wasn't any metrics or attribution like modern CRMs have. It was just a digital Rolodex. And so, and I remember that those early CRMs, I was like, what's even the point? Like, all I'm doing is just changing paper for a program that I had to pay a huge bill for because they were brand new and really expensive at the time. And I'm not sure if it was HubSpot, but the first CRM that I ever saw with the vertical columns was HubSpot. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, that's different, right? And then right behind it was like Infusionsoft and ActiveCampaign and Pipedrive and like all the other like the big ones that we know today, like all came right behind it. But the first one I ever saw that had that Kanban view was HubSpot. And I was like, oh, that's so much better. Like visually, you're just like, oh, I got, I got 17 proposals out. I got 5 people in meetings scheduled. I got 23 new leads I got to follow up with. Like it was just like really categorically just like easy to see. It was like almost like baskets, if you will, of like where they're at.
Yeah.
Um, so much better.
Yeah, my first exposure was to, Infusionsoft at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
That was in my first sales job before the one that I had mentioned earlier. Because I did sales full time for about 9 years, and for 2 other companies before I found, the people that I love, and I still love them to this day. But yeah, so it was Infusionsoft, and then, I got ActiveCampaign, for myself, and that was, super awesome. And then I did sales with another company after that, just briefly after COVID, and they were using Jobber. Um, so yeah, so lots of exposure to lots of those different things, but certainly not going back. Um, I did a couple years in the insurance business way back in the 90s too,
Mhm.
and
Oh
they
God,
had that.
those systems were so ugly and so primitive.
Yeah, they had they had that kind of thing, on, whatever it was, Windows 95.
Yeah, yeah, boy, those things were ugly. I know what you're talking about, though. Yeah. Um, I have a friend. This is an anecdotal side note, but I have a friend that built the CRM back in the '90s and sold it. Like he exited the company for like $5-6 million or something like that. Just like it was ugly and it was bad and it didn't even last that long and it got overwritten and it never made it just was like for one company, but it was like it was a CRM at the time was just so freaking new, like
Yeah.
any CRM was better than no CRM, you know. Um,
Yeah, technology is hilarious. I mean, when you look back and you think about how the things that were really valuable and rare, to
mhm.
know back then would seem so trivial now. And I mean,
Yeah,
I remember knowing how to use PowerPoint on Windows
yeah,
3.1.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
that
I
was a
remember Windows
very
3.1.
valuable skill in those days.
So my first computer, like it didn't have a graphical user interface. I was command line on my first computer, so it was black
Yeah, us too.
screen, green lines, right? So that was my first computer. Dot matrix printer that sounded like a jet engine taking off. It was so loud. And
It's
then
great.
Windows 3.1, and it was Windows 95 and Windows 98, and then I think it was 2000. I bought my first Mac, and I've never owned a Windows since.
Well, my dad
Um,
worked for the telephone company, and so
mhm.
he sold data lines.
Ah,
So my dad, we always had technology around the house. So the first thing that my dad brought home was actually a telex machine,
ooh,
which so
those are
you
I
had
don't know what those are.
yeah, so is it was like, it'd be like having a fax machine, but you could actually type into it, and then it would
Mhm,
send the message through, and it would print it on the other end. And so I grew up with, my dad always having we always had computers around, around the house. We had we had the Commodore computers and we had the Atari computer. We had all of those
yeah.
at different times. Um, and so it is
Man,
really
man,
interesting to
and
see.
in our generation, we're pretty close to the same age, but in our generation, like, that being around that much technology wasn't very common, you know? A
No.
lot of people only experienced a computer at school, if at all, you know? We're
Yep.
kind of in that weird crossover generation where, like, it was so new that some households had it and some didn't, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, I remember, like, I had a Windows computer, but it was like a lower end computer. And I remember when that game Doom came out and it required like so much RAM and processing power to do it. Like,
Totally.
not many, you had to like special build a computer for that. And my house was like, well, you got a computer like a few months ago. You're not getting a new one just for this one game. I was like,
Oh,
looking
yeah.
back, it makes sense. But at the time I was like, but I want it, you know? And so I had a friend that, his dad was an IT guy and had a computer that would play it, and they would let us go over there and we would play it, you know? And I mean, like, that was weird. You know what I mean? Like, the technology was just like growing so fast. Like, every few months, and it still happens. Every few months, it's like a completely different computer. Now it's AI. Every 3 months, it's like a different AI model. It's like ChatGPT. Now it's like Claude Code and Manus and all the other fun stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know, there was a time it seemed where the companies would design for the average user, and then something clicked, something changed where they began designing for the elite user or designing for the latest and greatest. So, like, I had friends, I think it was in 1996 or something like that. It's like, I remember this guy, Mark, and he got like a Pentium 200 computer,
Mm-hmm.
which meant that he could
And
play Diablo, you know what I
yeah.
mean? And all
Mm-hmm.
the guys would go to his house,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
eventually, World of Warcraft, like in the network games, playing each other. And but I played Doom and I played Wolfenstein 3D and I played the all
All that. Yep.
Duke Nukem was my favorite.
That was a good
Uh,
one.
when and so it was fun. So, when I get a hold of technology, I feel like I can think like it and learn it, fairly quickly. And certainly AI has been a whole lot of fun to kind of bring into the mix as well.
Well, and in most of the CRMs, they're adding AI functionality fast, like real fast. Well, I mean, not only does my CRM have AI, but my production software does too. So we use a tool called ClickUp for
Yeah,
production task management stuff. I mean, it's like Asana or Monday or whatever, but that's the one that we chose years ago when we were looking for one, and we've been on it ever since.
great.
And in the last like 6 months, they've added some really really cool AI features. So we use that software to track all of our work, client work, internal work, everything that gets done gets tracked in there. So every conversation, every file, every link, every task, every to do, the entire team, all of the side tangents, all of the notes, documentation, all of it, right? And
So
so
brilliant.
now all of a sudden there's these like AI agents inside of there. It started with just like an Ask AI button up at the top. They're like, you could just
Yep.
be on any page with Ask AI and it would give you a summary of whatever page you were on. Like, okay, that was pretty cool. But now I've got like a dozen agents in there that do all kinds of freaking things, man. My favorite one is I created an AI agent inside of ClickUp. It gives me a daily CEO digest. I literally just call it CEO digest. And it sends me a message that takes about 3 to 5 minutes to actually digest. So it's pretty short, right? But it's detailed on high level things that got completed or wrapped the day before, things that are priority today for the team, and what, if any, things require my attention. and that is wildly valuable. And it sends it to me at 8 in the morning every morning. So about the time I'm getting out of the gym and starting to sit down, it's there waiting on me.
I was
And
just
I'm
gonna say, in addition to that, you should get it to add like a small like workout from Richard Simmons. Like, but you've already worked out, so I guess you don't need that.
yeah. Well, I do have, I have an actual physical trainer, but then I also use AI to help, like, keep my track and my fitness goals and my health goals and nutrition goals and all that stuff. I tell it what kind of workouts I do in the week, give it progress. It gives me guidance. So there's some pretty cool stuff there too, you
Mhm.
know. So I mean, I have a human physical coach, like a
Mhm.
gym coach,
Yeah.
and then I use that and AI as a combination, and getting pretty good results. So I'm loving that combo. It's pretty cool. But like,
Is
and
it
CRM and Drip Shops has AI built into it now. Like, well,
Yep.
and not just Drip, all of them,
Sure.
Snapnote, Jobber, like, just
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
the Service Monster. They all are having AI.
Yep.
It's really wild to watch how fast that's coming.
Yeah, and I think one of the wonderful things that is probably going to come about is just where, production rates, and when painters are going out and giving pricing, they can provide a few parameters and,
Yeah,
they can
quick,
come to price
quicker pricing.
to come to their pricing, like, faster and more efficiently and without worry that, and,
So the price.
because it yeah, so it can take the experience of all of us, and it can, get it to a certain price that is, super reasonable and help the salesperson get to the business of, making sure that this is going to be a great relationship and, getting that job booked, rather than being bogged down in, super minutia. It's like, okay, well, how many what are we charging per linear foot of baseboard? Well, how thick is the baseboard? What profile is it? Is there quarter round as well? You know, like
What paint are you doing? Is it prepped or non-prepped? All this stuff. Yeah,
all of that
100%.
kind of stuff. And I think that's what I'm looking forward
I've
to in
I've
the
I've
sales
used
arena.
I've used AI to help some of my clients figure out production rates, at least get really close as a starting place before you kind of test and refine. And
Yep.
I mean, you can literally say, I'm using this paint and this surface. This is how much my labor cost, right? I mean, for anyone listening as that doesn't know what a production rate is, the analogy I use is like, if I have like a wallet like this, if I go into a store, this thing has a preset price. I don't grab this thing and go up to the counter and be like, how much for the wallet? And they got to sit around and figure it out. There's just a set price for it, right? It's a
Yep.
unit. And someone has figured out how much the leather costs, how much it costs someone to make the thing, how much it costs to package it, ship it, hold it, all this, the storefront that you're in, or e-com store if you're buying it online. All of those intrinsic things have a cost, and then you have to add your markup, and you're done. And so for like painters, it's like the materials, the prep stuff, the paint, the tools. They don't necessarily like go on every job, but there's a rate of brush replacement, a rate of tool failures and maintenance and stuff that has to happen, right? And then labor rates, labor burden, all the other things that come on top of the core rate, like all those other things that come in. And then with all of that, you're basically coming to like a linear foot rate or a square foot rate or some unit rate where it's like, if I charge X for this, it includes all of those things plus my profit, you know?
Yeah, and I think that what I've learned, after so many years of trying to calculate so many things so many different ways is that no matter how accurate you think you are, once you actually deploy the job,
You
the
don't need the tool.
numbers they all start to float anyway.
Hmm.
And so you can learn from that. But what I'm
Hmm.
looking forward to is the day truly that we can have all of this data, all of this data aggregate so that the numbers can kind of figure themselves out. The CRM becomes basically a cash register, and you plug the things in, what kind of condition they're in, all of the details, and depending on what state you're in or what province or what kind of work you're doing, whether it's landlord work, homeowner, you can even just speak to it and just say, okay, we have this area. Here are the pictures of it here or whatever. And get to the place where, the professional companies are charging a very professional rate and that they are really competing for people that who can provide the best service and who can provide the best customer experience.
I
And
agree.
so that's what I'm looking forward to is providing a great experience for salespeople and a great experience for homeowners that is devoid of a whole lot of subjectivity, and it's more about, you know, I'm interviewing you, you're interviewing me. Is this going to work out? I hope so.
Yeah. Well, I love that, and I think that the every time I've deployed a production rate, yeah, you have to like kind of get close and then deploy it and see what happens. The one mistake that I've seen people make there is like they put a just ungodly amount of time into trying to make that production rate perfect, and then they
Hmm.
launch it wrong. Like I just say, like get it close and launch it because no matter how much time you put in, it's going to be wrong. And even here's the other thing that sometimes people don't consider is like even if the actual production rate is wrong, what happens if the production crew messes something up? That happens. That will all of a sudden change your rate. Maybe if you're doing sub crews, it might not, depending on the type of mess up. Like, what if they really mess up? They have to get like a partial refund or like replace a door or something to a client. Well, that's money loss. That's profit. If you're talking about W-2 and they mess something up to repaint something, now there's, you know what I mean? So like the production system itself, like the production rate is supposed to be an average, right? So when I look at production rates, I want to say like if I did this same job 10 times, would this number work? Maybe there's a mess up on one that cost an like 3% or something, right? Like I don't
Right.
necessarily want to change my number for that. I may also have another job where it gets a little bit extra efficient. Maybe everyone's just like really working at their top that week and like we actually made an extra 3% in profit, right? And so I think about it in like averages, right? Like same thing with a wallet. That one wallet might have cost a little bit more or another, but like if you have a million of them, you can figure the number out. You know what I mean? And so you've done so many paint jobs, like you thousands at this point, like you can see those patterns and averages. You know what I mean? And then you get that data, and then you tweak it over time, and it allows you to give quick, fair pricing, adjust a little bit as you need to, and you just kind of keep going.
Absolutely. It's the thing. It's not the obvious things that change from one job to another. It's just more of the fact that we're using humans,
Yeah,
and
I know.
humans are just not machines.
Yeah,
They're
they're
not
fallible.
they're not predictable. They are e everything. There's nothing, there's no such thing really as work-life balance. That people's personal lives bleed into their work bleeds into their personal lives. We get all of that humans. That's who
Oh
we
yeah,
have doing the work. And if you are if you're estimating based on time, the way that I do, then you have to consider how long does it take the average awesome painter to do X?
mm-hmm.
And I had to do that because for 7 years, my income was tied directly to the profit margin. So,
Yeah,
you could when I first started there, you sold a whole bunch of jobs, but I was quoting them as if I was doing the work or what I thought I could do the work in.
yeah.
And
Because
so we
if you undersell and there's no profit margin, you wouldn't get paid, or wouldn't get
Well,
paid.
it took a while, right? But I was selling tons and tons of business out of the gate, and then when the P&L would come in, my boss wanted to kill me,
Yeah,
right? Because I had all these crews that were busy, but they weren't very profitable. So then I swung to the other end of the pendulum, and I was writing in thinking about timing. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, these these guys are slow. Why is it taking them this amount of time to do this?" But then I started to learn that it wasn't just them, it was them and a lot of other painters too. So I had to change my averages, but I'd gone all the other spectrum. So now I wasn't selling as many jobs because I was charging way too much.
yeah.
And then I was in trouble. So it took me about a year and a half 2 years to really get to that place where it's like I was very confident that when I gave a subcontractor a project, that the number was really based on all of my experience, which really means failure.
Hmm.
I win the most because I've
Well,
failed the
and
most.
and successes. You learn stuff from success too. I think you learn stronger lessons from failures, but I think you learn a little bit from both. I think
Well, learning from it is kind of is the success, so you get a point there too.
but I mean, every once in a while, like this is not super often. I'm with you. I fail more than I succeed. Um, but every once in a while, like a first guess is right. Sometimes, not often, but I don't know. I like to I like to think about like you learn from both successes and failures. I learn more from failures. You know.
Yeah, and I mentioned the failures because I think that's the part that people forget. It
Oh, yeah,
seems obvious that a person who's very successful is successful because they have kept on winning over and over again, but
that's not
they
that's
don't
not
know the losses that that person has had to experience in order to win. They don't know what the person has had to endure in the darkness in order to have great success in the light. And um, and that's the other
true.
thing about being
Social
so
media
hung
does
up.
give that. Social media gives that
Yeah.
filter. Like everything you see is like it seems to be perfect, right? But everyone struggles, myself included. You
So
included. Like
being
we all.
hung up on being right about your rate or about a price that is based on, on what you think the painters are going to do, to really agonize, over that, and then to realize that even if you think you've got it all right, once the job is deployed, that there's going to be leakage because, and I call it leakage just because there's always inexplainable things. Somebody decides I want to really hydrate this week. Well, guess what? That means they're going to the bathroom more often,
Mhm.
right? And so uh, all of these things are true. However, if we if we have a if we have a system that is based on what the average awesome painter can do, and we think about it that way, then
Mhm.
you you're gonna the whole point is to go out and to acquire business, because as you said, it's not it's not just about having more leads. Is that many times the thing that we focus on the most isn't necessarily what we need. Because if we do have a job that there is leakage and we go down to a 30% profit margin, or we go down to a profit margin that isn't ideal for our situation or what our owners or our bosses want, then there are lots of other ways to get amazing value out of that business, to get referrals, to get a Google review, to market in the neighborhood, to give that customer a great experience. And so you may not necessarily win on that front, but then there's other ways to win as well. And being I got a friend of mine, I got my cousin, and I don't know how many times he's like, "Well, how long did it take you to do a door frame?" And he's obsessed with door frames. And one day it's 12 minutes, another day it's 15 minutes, another day it's 14 minutes. And he tries to set up all of these per window, per door, per thing. And my question is always, well, what condition were they in? What's the profile like? What's the wall like beside them? Do you have to tear the caulking out? Do you know how much sanding do they need? Is it oil? Is it latex? Is it dirty? Do you have to clean the windows to get started? Are the, rather than just going into the house and looking at it and saying, okay, based on my experience, how long does it take the average awesome painter to do this? So I like to think in terms of time. And I do have an old school pen and paper way that I'm very happy to share with my painter friends if they are still, still not in the technology world. It can be done, and still be successful. But um,
I was talking about with this with somebody else. Like for some people, like the whole concept of production rate seems pretty new, right? Seems like something that's for the last few years, at least in painting, right? I still remember the first time I ever saw a production rate. It was in 1996, and, it was a painter, right? It was CertaPro, right? I happened to be around a CertaPro guy at the moment. I never worked for CertaPro, But it was around a CertaPro guy, and he was like showing me how he quoted something, and had this giant, thick laptop, and opened it up, and it was basically Excel, right? It wasn't app; it was just a spreadsheet. He would duplicate the spreadsheet, but it had all the math already. So he basically, square footage of the house, you know, height of walls, linear foot of baseboard, like all these things. You get all those measurements. I don't remember exactly what measurements he input, but you had to get measurements and put it in, and it would spit out a number. And that was
Hmm.
it. That was the number. That's what it was going to cost.
Yeah.
And it broke it down into how much to pay the sub, how much material should cost, how much paint, how much prep, how much his profit would be, like all of that stuff. It broke it down like
To
right.
this day, CertaPro is a fantastic system. It's
Yeah,
just like
it is.
anything else.
But
It's
I mean,
like,
think about that. Like right now, today, some of the people that are listening to this podcast, right, and we're recording it now. But someone, it's going to take a week or two for this thing airs, right? And then someone might not see it then. There might be somebody 6 months later listening to this, and at that very moment, somebody listening to this doesn't have production rates. They're like, "What are production rates? This is brand new." No, it's not. It's 30 years old, at least.
oh
I
yeah,
saw I saw it 30 years ago in painting. Now, obviously, for things like steel and fuel, bigger industries, pharma, they've known production rates for a long time. You think about like how much does a bottle of aspirin cost? It's the production rates, right?
right.
We figured out how much does it cost for the bottle, the
Sure.
packaging, and all the pills in there to ship it and produce it, blah blah blah, with the profit, and that's it, right? And then they sell it to the store to price, and the store adds their markup on top of that. That's the supplier's production rates and then the store's production rates. Same
Absolutely.
thing, right?
Yep.
So like Sherwin-Williams has to have their production rates on how much does it cost to make a gallon of A100 or super paint or whatever they have, and the dyes and the holding cost and the shipping costs and everything else. So they have their production rates on how much it costs for them to sell a gallon of paint to you, the painter. Then you
Yeah.
have to take that and make your production costs. Like, this is not a new concept. This has been
Right.
around for a very, very, very long time. Yeah, I mean, pen and paper was probably the way. The first digital version I ever saw was in like '96 with CertaPro on a laptop. But that was when I didn't even ask him like how long they've had it. He was just using it like it was a normal thing, you know. Now it was one of those brick of laptops back then were giant, and he had to have like an inverter in his car to even like turn the thing on. I'm sure that battery lasted
Yeah.
all of whopping 10 minutes, but
Yeah. I
still,
mean, but
it was pricing
CertaPro,
on the
they're
job in the '90s,
yeah, and
bro.
they're trying to make it simple for their franchisees. I mean,
Correct.
they've been doing they have been doing it for a very, very long time. And what it allows the head office to, to set those, just like in so many other businesses, to set
Yeah,
the pricing structures based on, just like McDonald's has a price for a hamburger, wherever it may be, they set the prices. People just don't go and, you don't give somebody a quote on a hamburger.
I know.
You charge what you charge for that hamburger because your franchisee tells you to do that because they've done the research to know what the market
And
can bear.
there are like market adjustments in city to city, but that's not about the
Absolutely.
hamburger. That's about the real estate cost, right? So like, you go to one McDonald's, maybe this hamburger is
Sure.
$40, and in another city is maybe 350, right? So and painters will have to do that too. Maybe depending on where someone lives, like the cost of shipping paint to some store, maybe like I would imagine that paint in Hawaii is more expensive than it is, right? Because it's got to get shipped over there. They're not producing in Hawaii; they're shipping it.
Right.
So
Right.
like you get to there, or like the Keys or something like that, or something remote in the mountains, it's gonna be more
Yeah.
expensive to get that product there. So the product will be more expensive. So therefore your production rates will be more expensive. Same product but different cost of getting the product.
Yeah.
That changes things. You know,
Yeah. And that was, I think that's one of the benefits of being in being in a franchise system, is that
they'll give you that baseball
they
situation smart
you
locally.
right out of the gate, somebody doesn't really need to know a whole lot about painting in
Yeah.
order to use their whatever it is, their takeoff
Mhm.
sheet or whatever it is. A lot of them are still using, a legal sized big takeoff sheet that where you
Mhm.
put in the measurements and it takes you, an hour to put it all together. But even them, a lot of them are still presenting on site. Customer waits an hour while you do it in the car,
Mhm.
and then you do the presentation right away. So,
If
yeah,
you you
a lot of those
if you use one
systems
of the
are
modern
really
systems,
valuable.
you can put those things together in like 5 minutes now, though. With provided you've already done the math on the production rates.
Yeah, and that's where I'm looking forward to AI participating more in that,
Yeah.
so that you have, in my town, I consider about 4 other painting companies to be, we're kind of colleagues, right? We're kind of at the same level of
Okay.
professionalism, and we all know each other, and, we support one another and all of that. If our pricing plan was similar across the board, we would be competing for the really fun part, which is who can give the customer the best experience. And so I'm looking forward to sort of that day when we don't have to talk as much about that piece to the puzzle. I'm sure it'll always be a somewhat topic of discussion, but I'm looking forward more to the day where we can do just better presentations, have a greater experience for people.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot, and I mean, you and I know this, but there's just a lot of psychology and the persuasion of this, and without even being like we talked about earlier, like not high pressure closing, but like, yeah, there's a part that's the numbers in this production rate, but like the lion's share of this is about trust and process and customer experience and just all those other buzzwords that are not price. I know you've seen this a lot in the space, but like I commonly will hear, well, I can't sell at that price. And then I'll give you an example. I'm not going to name names, company or personal names, but I got a client that for the last year and a half, we've been working together. He's been struggling. Like the numbers have just not made sense. And so like, but I found this out very early on. And he was on our lowest marketing plan and we were doing good, like good ROI on that, but he still wasn't making money. I'm like, we got to dive in. We got to figure this out. So we jump on a call, and then I find out he's pitching at 40% gross profit margins, sometimes discounting a percent or two or three. And then sometimes operationally with the leakage, it might actually be 35 or 30 gross profit, not net profit. Right. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, that'll do it. That's
Yeah,
just not the numbers we want. And I was
yeah,
like, man, we got to get these prices. Like you already know the rates here. We
right.
just got to get you a 50% gross profit margin. Just change that will be good. And he resisted me for like a year. Like
Yes.
every month of meetings, like wouldn't do it. And he kept saying the same things like, I can't price like that. I'm already getting beat up on price. Took a while, took some shifts. We helped him with a few process things, and some sales coaching stuff. And then we got to a place where he finally actually changed it. He was and so like I think it was like December or January. So pretty recently he changed it. And I was talking to him just a couple weeks ago. I was like, "So how's this going?" He's like, "Dude, I should have done this sooner. Like I'm not closing less. I'm actually closing more, and I'm charging more." I was like, "Told you." You know what I mean? But it's like now, but the great part is now he's got an extra 10% at least that he's getting back into his budget to actually have profit and comfort
And
and
what has he changed about his process and his presentation?
not much, right? The prices and probably some confidence. You know what I mean? I know that I gave him some tips and stuff here for sure, but loosely he had the right stuff in place, right?
Mhm.
Loosely, he was doing an in-home consultation, pricing on the spot, had good, better, best options, all that kind of standardish stuff. Like you said, the standard stuff today. He's doing all that. The prices were just off, and I think if anything, I just don't think he felt confident about the price.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean. And that's huge. Like
Yeah,
if
the first
you don't
time
believe it, no one else is going to believe it either.
the first the first time you learn it, it's almost like using a credit card for the first time.
It's
It's like,
weird. Yeah.
"Oh, it worked."
Yeah.
You know, and, um, and I found that frequently. Certainly, there is a ceiling to what the market can bear, and
Oh yeah,
certainly you
it's not like
yeah.
going to take $1,000 job and turn it to $100,000 job. Like
No, no,
no,
but again, mm, the as far as what we ask for, the price, it really just depends on who we happen to be sitting in front of that day. And we may think that we've done everything we can to attract the right market. And so we drive to the beautiful, wonderful neighborhood. We drive to what we think is going to be our ideal customer. And they're in, that expensive house. And we just feel like we've nailed it. But we get in there and it turns out that that person is quite price sensitive. And then you prejudge and you think, okay, well, gosh, they asked for a major discount. I obviously I can't charge that much. And then you go to, you go to the home of a blue collar worker who, really appreciates the value of hard work, and and that person turns out to be an ideal customer. No problem with the pricing. So the pricing is more about, in general, kind of
It's more about them,
who
not
it
you.
who it is you're sitting with. It's not about you, it is about them, but what we ask, we do have to be kind of responsible for. And
Mm.
so, if you provide excellent service, if you provide something that's over and above, if you have a color consultant that you offer free of charge like I do, if you have a cleaning crew that you're willing to send in after you've done the job, then, you know, you're you are trying to deliver as much value as you possibly can. And,
Mhm.
that should attract, for the most part, people that are going to, that
But that
want
goes
to
back to
pay
like
in that.
the law of averages, though. It's gonna happen on the production side and the sales side, you know?
Yeah, it's gonna happen. So it's yeah, it is a hard lesson to learn. But price, oh gosh, I could talk about price forever. Just how,
I actually
h
geek out on pricing psychology. I spent a few years, like, reading a bunch of, like, Harvard and Yale studies on, like, pricing psychology. There's some
what's
really
the
interesting ones out there.
what's the cheapest bottle of water you've ever bought? Cheapest.
It depends on time frame, right? So, I mean, the cheapest
Okay,
bottle of water I probably ever bought was probably 25 cents, but that would have
right.
been, like,
But what's the most expensive bottle of water you ever bought?
$8, I think,
Uh,
probably,
and
give or
and
take.
what's the difference between the 2?
Decades and location. So
Right?
gas station 25, 30 years ago, or Disney yesterday, right?
Yep, there you go.
Location and timing. So price goes up overall. That's actually, I think, like, if you are talking about pricing, which I don't like spending tons of time on pricing, and as far as like how to sell, at least it's a thing that it's required. But I
Well, there
think
was
one,
a time though when pricing went down. Like there was a
yeah,
time where we
up and
were like,
down, yeah,
where the
gas has gone
time
up and
wasn't
down,
proper because, you know,
yeah,
uh, right pricing right now is only maybe average pricing even in the painting business is only about 15-20% more than it was in the 90s.
okay, yeah.
You know, even early 2000s, it just it hasn't gone up that much.
Well,
And,
I think the price painting companies charge has gone up a lot, but the actual paint itself hasn't gone up as much. It's the fact that that the clients now are they're. I mean, you've been painting long enough, and I was painting at that. I don't paint now, but I was painting at that time. I remember what painting companies were like in the '90s. That was a crude, non-customer service bunch of people, right? And so, like, the paint might have been just the same. The paint jobs mechanically might have been the same, but the level of service was crap, right? Now you have the service and, project managers and cleaning companies and better prep, right? All this kind of stuff that, like, generally is happening today. And
yeah.
that's where those costs
Yeah, I
go.
should use maybe some of the early 2000s as more of
Mhm,
as an example, but
mhm.
again, what I went out and quoted paint jobs for 20 years ago for that were in the high end, it's you're not garnering a lot more nowadays, compared to how the time has gone up, how the time has gone, and painters are not getting paid, um, a lot more, like, to keep up with inflation than they were, in
Yeah,
those days. So it's a kind of a tough piece of business on that front. I think you have to make sure, and, for somebody that does coach people on setting up their business and SOPs, and, I applaud you for, you know, your effort when you see a person that's something that they're missing, that you just encourage them
mhm,
just just to ask. Just It's just like anything else. You're just asking for the business. You decide what your price is, and then you just charge that price, and you just ask for that price.
yeah,
And if you sit in front of the right kind of people enough, then you're going to have people that are saying yes, and you do it right, and then they're going to be saying yes, and it's a worthwhile thing.
I agree.
I would say don't listen to what people say. Don't hang around negative people that are always talking about this and this person's undercutting that. And what do you charge for this? And let's compare, it's on what you charge and what you charge and what you charge. It doesn't matter what anybody else charges.
I
You
agree.
have
Could
you,
not agree more.
you have
Could
to
not-
decide for your life and for your business. As long as it's close to what the market can bear, then and you can provide an excellent service that matches it, then you know you decide what that price is, and you decide why you want to charge it, whatever that is for your why. If you've got 3 kids and your wife's out, you may have a different need in your life at that time. If you are not trying to build and scale and add multi, and you're not going to do, then that's a whole different thing. If you want to invest in your future and grow, and you want to invest in coaching and be a part of masterminds and ascend your people into that environment as well, then you're going to ask for something different.
Of course.
So go ahead and ask.
I love that, man. That's a huge takeaway as we wrap up here. I think what I pulled from that is like, just be yourself, figure out what's right for you, and that's your price. And I think that the second big takeaway for me from our conversation today is just like, I don't know if you directly said it, but definitely hinted at it and talked about it. It's like the repetitions are where you learn. You know, you got to do a lot of reps, and I think that's something that no matter what discipline you're in, I think that in any discipline, into bowling or marketing or painting or day trading, like you pick a niche, doesn't matter.
Or shooting.
Shooting, right? All of it. It takes just so many more reps to be
Yep.
great than most people think.
Yep.
And so one of the things I commonly try to remind people of is like, you're in the season of like, we're always gonna fail, but like, you're in the thick of it right now. You just need more reps and a lot more of them, and just get out there and price and adjust and price and adjust and play with different techniques. And I know we just kind of talked anecdotally about, but follow a program, try it, tweak something, try it again, tweak something, try it again. You know what I mean? And eventually you're gonna wake up one day and you're gonna be like, holy crap, I'm actually good at this. You
Yep.
know? And
Yeah, and
it's
I would encourage anybody to consume your content, on building SOPs for you and for
and
your
yours as well,
team.
man. You got a really
Be
great
Yeah,
Instagram channel, all the stuff that you're
yeah,
sharing, man. I really,
yeah,
really
because if you commit to a system, that you can always change it, but you can lean on that system, because you're not always gonna be in the right mindset, you're not always gonna be in the right frame of mind. There are other things that are competing in your brain space, but
Mhm.
when you have a system, when you turn the internal cash register on, and you turn on that persona, what that is tied to the system, then you're just gonna have this greater opportunity for success. And then when you learn something, you can take it, and instead of having to remember it, you have to kind of plug it in to your system. So I
Yeah.
remember when I first sent out my first email, basically an email that I send to the customer to tell them how the appointment is going to go. I booked the call with them. Now I'm going to give them an agenda about what we're going to do when I go and I come to your home. This is how long it's going to take. Please allow 15 minutes, plus or minus. I'm always on time, but allow 15 minutes plus or minus, for traffic or something like that. And, this is what each segment is going to take, and then I'm going to come back. We're going to sit down at the kitchen table. I'm going to show you what I have, and you can tell me what you think.
Mhm.
When I started sending that little email out with my CRM, when I started sending that email out, actually, I did it manually at first. It made a whole world of difference.
Yeah, because
Th-
people, they
They're
start beginning to know
prepared.
what to expect. They're prepared. They're
They're
prepared.
prepared, and so,
I think
systems are fantastic, and I mean, obviously, that's
well,
the
I think
James Clear quote, from Atomic
systems keep
Habits.
it clear though. Like that's the point. keep it clear and
Yeah.
repeatable, right?
Yeah.
And through systems, you get clarity, you get less confused buyers. Confused buyers don't buy, so there's that. So, man, I really enjoyed having you on here. What's your Instagram channel? So if anyone listening here can follow you.
Yeah, so it's, I put an H in front of my name because that's, it's my dad's name, but it's also
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
my legal name, so it's H
yeah.
Scott Fitch. So it's my
Okay,
Instagram handle is at H
yeah,
Scott Fitch.
love it.
As far as my that would be sort of my coaching and personal brand
Perfect.
space. And then the same thing on Facebook.
Okay. I love it, man. Well, if you guys aren't following Scott, you should. He's a really cool dude. Really love having him here. Thank you so much for the time today and sharing your, decades of experience with us. I love it. Can't wait till the next time we get to chat. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thanks again.